He came looking for the American dream, but it's not clear he got it. It's Neal Walia. He's running for Congress in Colorado's 1st District, and he joins us now. Neal, welcome.
Pleasure to be here, and thank you for lending me the platform.
No problem. Before we get into Democrats, Republicans, and the specifics of this race, your family came here looking for the American dream. I'm curious, did you find it?
Yeah, well, nice to meet everybody who's on the show right now. My name is Neal Walia. I'm a candidate running for Congress in Colorado's 1st Congressional District in Denver, Colorado, and you're absolutely right. My parents are from India. I'm the first person in my family to be born in the United States of America. And like many immigrants all over across this world, my parents came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. And like my parents, I've taken all the steps that I've been told that would allow me to build a better life for me and my loved ones. I'm someone who's been fortunate enough to have gone to graduate school right here at the University of Colorado at Denver. I taught students. I worked for the former governor of Colorado for about 3 years on a team committed to ending homelessness in our state. And that took me out to Washington, D.C., where I spent about a handful of years of my career working in and out of the halls of Congress on Capitol Hill. And yet, in spite of taking all of these steps, I feel like my life is in a more vulnerable position than it's ever felt. And what I mean by that is I'm being crushed right now by a lifetime of student debt. I can't afford to buy a home in the city that I love. The cost of childcare is something that is actively delaying my wife and I's ability to begin our family. And now my parents, my dad is 70, my mom is in her mid-60s. They're both public school teachers here in Colorado. They have actively postponed their retirement, not only because of the economic insecurities that they're facing, but like a lot of people in my parents' age, I think they're asking themselves the question, do I still have a role to play in shaping the future for my children and my grandchildren? And really, it was feeling all of these pressures in my own life and knowing that there are millions of Americans all over this country who are going through exactly what I'm going through. That's why I've run for Congress. It's because I believe our communities deserve to have someone who is living their struggles, but more importantly, will fight to fix them as if their life depended on it, because my life does.
So Neal, on the issue of student debt, Biden is actually considering relieving at least $10,000 of student debt. And so when he announced that he's considering that, I told our audience the corporate goons will arrive all over television, and they did. So we're told that Fox News, MSNBC, et cetera, disagree. But lo and behold, whether it was Greg Gutfeld on Fox News, Chuck Todd on MSNBC, or by the way, Paul Begala on Bill Maher's show on HBO, all of a sudden, magically, they all agreed none of your student debt should be relieved. That would hurt their banker friends. They left that part out. So when you hear mainstream media say, I can't tell the difference between a progressive and a normal Democrat, an establishment Democrat, how frustrating is that given the gigantic differences, including on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, let's start by saying that it was promised to us that on the campaign trail, President Biden, if elected, would cancel at minimum $10,000 of student debt per borrower. I think knowing right now the precarious position that Democrats are in, especially when it comes to delivering on some of the other issues that they promised on going into the presidential election, it is of vital importance that they honor this commitment. I, of course, naturally believe we have to move towards more fuller and comprehensive student debt cancellation, knowing that there is a generation of Americans all over this country who are paying more for education, healthcare, housing than any other generation before them. And so we have to honor the student debt cancellation to some extent, not only to serve the midterms and hopefully recover the presidency, but more importantly, provide economic relief to tens of millions of Americans who are feeling the full weight of the American economy right now. Student debt cancellation is an intersectional issue. The number one demographic of individuals who own student debt are women in this country. So if we really care about shaping the future for some of the most vulnerable communities in our country, this has to be a top issue that President Biden has to deliver on in the moment. And then again, move towards more full comprehensive debt cancellation as we move forward from from today.
All right, so now let's get to the standard question. You're running against Diana DeGette. She's an incumbent Democrat in a very heavily Democratic district. The Republicans have no chance of winning this one. So people will say, well, we already have a Democrat. She probably agrees with you theoretically on a lot of these issues. So why bother running?
Well, listen, after having spent a number of years in Washington, D.C., it became very clear to me that the fundamental issue that is fracturing not just the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party as well, is the saturation of corporate PAC dollars and the acceptance of corporate PAC dollars by both parties. And unfortunately, my opponent is someone who is guilty of taking literally millions and millions of dollars from corporations like ExxonMobil, from Goldman Sachs, to Xcel Energy, which happens to be our state's largest oil and gas lobby and greenhouse gas emitter. And so what we've seen happen in a D+57 district like Denver, Colorado, one of the most progressive districts in the United States of America, we should be championing the Green New Deal, but we can't because of the lobbying money she has received from corporations like Xcel Energy. We should be championing healthcare as a human right. I believe in universal healthcare. Healthcare is a human right, period. And I think maybe on paper or symbolically, my opponent may agree with that. But when you look at her financials, big pharmaceutical companies, big healthcare companies, and lobbyists in that industry are her #1 financer. And this pattern of behavior has really prevented us from making our stride as one of the leading progressive voices in this country. And I think it's time that we do Denver better. And I'm hoping that we do Denver better once I win our primary on June 28th.
So Neal, how's the press been? Because normally when you say things like that, if there were real reporters, they'd say, oh my gosh, she's taking all this money from all these oil companies. Well, that looks like the appearance of corruption at a minimum. My guess is they get annoyed at you saying, oh, come on, everybody knows that already. There's no way we're gonna cover that. But I don't know, how has it been in your case?
You know, what's been really frustrating for me is I am the only Democratic incumbent primary challenger in the entire state of Colorado. When I win my election in June, I will be the first person of color to ever represent our district in the halls of Congress. And we have really created a powerful campaign that is people powered, that is challenging the establishment at every corner. And there is real momentum behind us right now. But to your point, big press here in Colorado haven't exactly given us the dues I think we deserve. And that's why I appreciate networks like yours. That's why I appreciate your show. It's because you're giving us the opportunity to highlight the necessity of this moment. And I will say that local press here has done a fair job of giving us coverage, of trying to include us in their press. But we are certainly hoping for more visibility as we get closer to the June primary. And I just want to echo one more time that I am very grateful for the opportunity to be on here, and thank you for allowing us to spread our message.
Yeah, no problem. And Neal, let's talk about your come to Jesus moment, because you worked for Hickenlooper, or as sometimes we call him, Hickenfracker. So he's the guy who drank fracking fluid just to show how he would do anything for corporations. So having worked for him, how did you get to be an actual progressive?
Yeah, so before I left for Washington, D.C., the first working opportunity I ever had in government, in state government, was under the Hickenlooper administration. And I want to be very honest to say that I actually really appreciated my time at the governor's office, mostly because one, I worked with a dynamic group of individuals who are committed to ending homelessness. And I really appreciated the work that I did on a daily basis. But unfortunately, I think what we have seen since our days working in the governor's office, and after, as I said, having accepted a position out in Washington, D.C. and working in our federal government, where I was able to see just how pervasive corporate PAC dollars are in our nation's capital. What's become clear is that unfortunately, Senator Hickenlooper is also guilty of taking a lot of money from corporations that are willing to see the planet burn to the ground in the name of corporate profit. And so For me, when I was in Washington, D.C., that was a hard pill to swallow. Thankfully, at that time, Bernie Sanders was running his presidential campaign. At that moment, I kind of saw the light, something that was community focused, justice driven, and that put people above profit, politics, and party. And that is when I effectively joined that movement. And what I want to say is that, unfortunately, Senator Hickenlooper, when he started his term as Senate, we saw kind of the pattern that we've seen time and again with Democrats on the campaign trail and what happens once they're elected. Specifically with my community, which is an Indian immigrant community right here, Senator Hickenlooper made an intentional effort to campaign in our community. We raised a number of dollars for him. We helped beat Cory Gardner and get him into office. And what Senator Hickenlooper told us on the campaign trail was, we care about immigration. We care about citizenship. We care about pathways. And unfortunately, his first voting act as senator was on the COVID relief package, which said, we are not going to provide financial relief to undocumented people as a part of this package. And that was something that, I was very disappointed by. It was something that so many other people who are in the immigrants' rights space here in Colorado were also disappointed by. And it is something that is now, I think, very present as a reality for so many other people across this country, which is, a real feeling of distrust and disappointment within the Democratic Party. And, that's what we're hoping to change once we're elected into office this June.
All right, Neal Walia for Congress.com. Neal, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much and have a great night.
You too.